Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Richard's Toy Room. Thought I'd go on a little tangent today. Usually I do toys or models or games or vintage stuff like that. But I'm also into comics. And I thought I would try a sort of retrospective review, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, on this Superboy title. This is the second series to feature Superboy in his own title. It's actually named The New Adventures of Superboy. The original uh, was from 1949, and basically he's the teenage version of the Man of Steel. He first appeared in 1945, which is about 7 years after Superman first appeared. Uh, he's actually a really good character. He's one of my favorite characters of all time in comics. And the stories and comics that he appeared in were always very entertaining. There was a lot of things introduced with Superboy. Uh, he has like Lana Lang and Pete Ross and Smallville and all that stuff. Bizarro first appeared in Superboy. Uh, you may not know that also in 1962, Superboy was the second best selling comic book in the United States. The number one comic book was Superman. So that tells you how popular this character was. And it's a shame that he basically was retconned out of existence for DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths from 1985 through 1986 for their 50th anniversary. Um, they basically just trashed Superman's history and started all over again. It wasn't like it was bad. It was just different, and when you get rid of characters like this that you grew up with and really meant a lot to you, it was it wasn't a good thing for a fan of Superboy and Supergirl and all the very well known Superman family of characters and titles. So anyway, I mean, this series came out in 1980, and at that point, Superboy had already lost his original title to the Legion of Superheroes. I mean, he had pretty much lost it years before because the Legion took over the book and it actually became titled Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. And that ran for maybe about 60 issues before the Legion just kicked him out of his own book. And then he had like a couple of appearances. He was in Adventure Comics for a few issues, and Superman Family had some of his own solo stories. But finally, they gave him his own title back with this series, which would turn out to be basically his last appearance in the DC universe. Um, like I said, because they decided to get rid of him and revamp Superman. So this series ran until 1984, ran for 54 issues, and in a few of the issues they had the Dial H for Hero as the backup story. I never liked that series. I never got into it. I never thought it was interesting. But the good thing about this series is it was done, as you can see on the cover here, by Kurt Schaffenberger, who was actually an artist from back in the 40s all the way through until probably until he died, I would guess. But he used to do Captain Marvel, and of course, he did like Lois Lane, and I think he did almost every single issue of this series either as the penciler or the inker, because he did have a heart attack at one point for a couple issues in It was penciled by another artist. I believe it was Alex Saviak. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But anyway, so I thought I'd just take a quick scan through these, show you the all the covers, and point out anything that may have be of interest or issues that were a little more significant than others. So here's your first issue. He's supposedly turning 16. Then we went to issue number 2. Here he is. He's fighting a demon. Here's issue number 3. He meets a new foe who also appears in issue number 4. Here's issue number 5. Here's issue number 6. Number 7. Number 7 is a very thick issue. It's got a bonus story in here. It was, this was actually printed in a separate comic too. It was a Radio Shack giveaway for their home computer of the time. These stories are just very entertaining. They're just they make you really feel like you went back to the 60s. It's just, they did such a great job. Here's issue number 8. Now here's issue number 9. Now this issue, they started the 8 extra page story backup features. This one was featuring Superboy's Secret Diary, and it also had an appearance by the Phantom Zone villains, who also disappeared with the crisis. Here's Crypto, has his own backup story in issue number 10. And issue number 11 features a backup story of Super Baby. People like to make fun of it, but I don't know, it's just so charming. They're just so innocent. They're very fun reads on all these books. There's another one with Superboy's Secret Diary, issue number 12. Here's a book-length story in issue 13. Here's issue 14. In this one, Super Baby backup story, he meets Zatara, however you pronounce that, the magician, who is Zatanna's father. And here's evil Lex Luthor fighting against Superboy. Here's 15. Now this one's also got an interesting one. It's a 2-part backup story. It's Superboy meets Clark Kent. Now what actually happened continues in issue 16 here, is Superboy went to the Earth 2 and met the Earth 2 Superman, Clark Kent, before he became Superman. He went back in time, too. That was a pretty interesting story, and he actually trained him. Here's a classic-looking cover. Superboy building a robot. And a backup feature of Crypto, issue 17. Here's issue 18. Here's issue 19 with another Super Baby backup story. Here's issue 20. '21. '22 features a blurb for the Superman 2 movie, and also a Crypto backup feature. '23. This reminds me of a early 60s Superman cover where he's in a Wild West town fighting some Kryptonians. Here is 24, another classic type cover where Lana suspects Clark being Superboy. Similar to Lois thinking Clark is Superman. Here is issue number 25. Superboy fighting a hippie. This is supposed to be taking place in the late 60s to right around 1970 at the time that these were published. Here's number 26. Here's 27. And this one had one of those plot twist kind of stories where these two were saying that they were actually Superboy's real parents, but they weren't. Here's the first appearance of the Dial H for Hero backup in issue 28. Like I said earlier, I never cared for that series. I found it to be pretty dull and boring. The only thing that was kind of cool about it, here's issue 29. The only thing that was kind of cool about the backup series was they did use the original Robbie Reed as a plot device, and he ended up being like the bad guy who, of course, had amnesia or whatever, and that was a big backstory plot device in throughout the whole Dial H series in this in the back of Superboy here. Here's issue 30. And here's 31. Here's 32. Now here in issue 34, this is the first appearance of a character named the Yellow Perry. They misspelled it on the cover as P-E-R. It's supposed to be P-E-R-I. She was sort of like a magician in a way. She could do magic, and she appeared as sort of like a villain at first, but she ended up actually being a good guy in the end. I think she appeared either one or two more times in the title. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else besides this. I thought she looked a lot like, or she reminded me of like I Dream of Jeannie. And this is issue 35. This also had an extra 16-page Masters of the Universe preview in it. Here's 36. This is kind of a neat cover. I like the design of it. Here's 37. Another neat thing about this series is they featured a character as a love interest for Clark named Lisa. And to the best of my knowledge, they were planning something with her that was supposed to perhaps have some sort of sinister backstory or something that was going to be revealed, and they never did. There was a backstory also with Pa Kent supposedly running for I think it was a congressional seat or something along that line, and or like the town council or something, and somebody was trying to kill him because they didn't want him to run for the town council. That kind of, all those storylines got left hanging at the end of the series, really. It was issue 38. Because they had planned on bringing, or at least in the letter column, they had said they planned on bringing Superboy and Supergirl, which they had also canceled right around the same time, back in another series called Double Comics, a 48-page comic, which never appeared. My personal opinion is they already knew they were getting rid of them by that time, and they just said that because they didn't want to spill the beans on what was actually happening in the crisis. But here's 39, Christmas Story. Here's 40. Now we start some Gil Kane covers. '41. And this was the first appearance of a character called Dynamind. He actually turned out to be a a fellow student of Clark in Smallville, and he acquired these powers and became a villain. He was pretty formidable to Superboy, but of course, we ended up defeating him in the end. Here's the second part of that story in number 43. Another Gil Kane cover. Here's another Gil Kane cover on 44. Now here's where I think the series kind of started to go a little downhill. With issue 45 here. Another Gil Kane cover, but this character, this Japanese superhero, supervillain, whatever you want to call him, it was a 3-part story. I just thought it was like way too long. He's called Sunburst. I mean, it wasn't like it was bad. It just, you could kind of feel the tone kind of change in the series. It didn't have that 60s feel anymore. It just kind of felt different. It's the best way I can describe it. Here's 46. Second part of the Sunburst story. Here's 47, the conclusion of the Sunburst story. As you can see, Dial H for Hero still running in the back. Dial H for Hero ended with number 50, which we're coming up to very shortly. Here is another Gil Kane cover with Lex Luthor on number 48, where he gained some superpowers. And you can see he's got the green and the purple in his costume, which he donned later. Well, actually before that, in real time, but in chronological to the Superman's history, it would have been later. Here's 49, another Gil Kane cover. Now here's the anniversary issue 50. This featured some Keith Giffen art as a bookend to the Superboy story in the middle, which was done by Schaffenberger, and also had a Dial, well, it says Dial V, but Dial H Hero Dial featured prominently in the story. It had something to do with somebody stealing the H-Dial from a museum in the Legion of Superheroes time and then traveling back in time and all that. I always liked this logo that they had back then for their anniversary issues. This is from 1984. Now this story, this is a Frank Miller cover, the only one he did for the series. This should have actually been the last issue, in my opinion, because it really even has that feel to it. It's almost like the 52, 53, and 54 that came after feel like afterthoughts almost after this issue, because this issue basically deals with Superboy after... I'm trying to find if it shows it in here. I think it just mentions it. Oh yeah, well, Ma and Pa Kent died. Hope I didn't spoil that for you. But and he decides to leave Smallville and go to Metropolis eventually. But this was penciled by Kurt Swan. This story was told before, but I'm thinking this is not a reprint. I'm pretty sure this is a new story. And as you can see, Schaffenberger did some of the art in it too. But anyway, this had the feeling of an end of the series. It should have been the final issue, because basically after this is when he turns into Superman. But anyway, it is what it is. That's where they decided to put it. So we move to 52. We kind of go back to the 60s kind of feel. It did kind of turn back around here and have that 60s feel again, but by then they already knew they were canceling it. And Here's 53. Another Schaffenberger cover. The final issue. This is an Eduardo Barreto cover for issue number 54, June of 1984. And it featured Superboy Revenge Squad. And like I said, left a lot of things unresolved. I'm not sure if it was intentional, if they really did plan on making that double comic book, but it didn't come about. And so basically that's where we are. We're done with the New Adventures of Superboy. I hope this wasn't too dull or boring. If it's successful, I'll try to do some more. I mean, I have plenty of comic series that I can review and tell little stories and show the covers of. So thank you for coming. You can watch my other videos if you desire. I will be making more. Look for them. You can subscribe if you want. I don't get anything out of it. I just do this because it's kind of therapeutic for me and because I enjoy it and it's fun. So there you go.